All right, we got people starting to come in. We're going to give this a few minutes, everyone, as you're logging in. Get everyone a few minutes to join us. Emmanuel, we got holidays coming up. What you got going on with the family?
Nothing planned as of yet. We were just thinking of taking this summer cool and easy because last summer we were traveling. We were in Singapore, we were in India. So we thought this summer, let's see. If all goes well, maybe we'll go back to Singapore for a short stint. But outside of nothing else planned.
I feel like going all the way you're on the West Coast, so going to Singapore maybe is not as much of a pain with me being in Nashville, but I feel like I would have to go for like a full week plus to make the flights even worth it, especially with kids.
Yeah, the it's not so bad here, because we have a direct flight from Seattle to Singapore.
Yeah.
So it's 16 hours on the plane. Go in, you sleep, you wake up, you're in Singapore.
Kyle and I just cringed about thinking of 16 hours with our children on a plane for that long. I don't know. Yeah, something would go wrong.
Just bringing car seats.
Yeah.
Right. By itself would just be a nightmare. We're gonna head down to the beaches in Florida over Memorial Day weekend. So the next time, when you see me at Realcomm, I'll probably be like 16 shades more red than what you're seeing right now, because I lack the melanin to get any real color. I just burn and then get crispy.
We were at a lacrosse game last week and it was 85 degrees here, but the Seattle sun is the high UV sun, so it literally cooks you out even though it's not that hot. And you can see everybody else was hiding it out, suntanning it out, and I'm sitting there like I'm on the beach, enjoying the sun and counting off literally like, oh, guys, I'm fine, don't worry about me. Did you need to cool down? I said, no, I have natural cooling. It's called melanin. It just keeps me ice. Yeah. It's funny when you see those who don't have it, how much they cover themselves from the sun.
Yeah. Well, I'll have 5 gallons, 100 SPF cream on, probably a hood, one of those hats that's like this big.
Right.
So I'm going to be adorable on that beach. I'm gonna have to fight all the ladies off with a stick.
That'd be a tough one to believe, but sure, I can believe that.
All right, everyone. So we're about 5 after, so we're gonna go ahead and kick things off. I'm super excited about today's episode. Since we've got a lot going on in the office world, I've got an expert joining Andy and I today, and over the last several years, we've seen a number of just very dynamic shifts in external factors that have really impacted the way workplace experience is thought about, the way spaces in an office environment are being designed. We have kind of the pre-pandemic era where we started to see a greater trend of a lot of organizations going towards point solutions. They were looking at, I need the next shiny thing. I need a workplace experience app to do all the things and engage with my employees. And we had the fun experience with the pandemic, which I'm sure everyone thoroughly enjoyed, where all of a sudden you saw a key trend in touchless experience. We saw a trend in really a focus on health and wellness and indoor air quality. And then as of late, we're looking more at this flex hybrid work from home thing that companies are just kind of polarized on what their actual strategy is going to be. And really the definition and vision of what an ideal office environment should be is just constantly shifting. Now, we've got Emmanuel Daniel with Microsoft who's joined Andy and I today. And, I know your story, Emmanuel. I've known you for years. Andy's known you for years. We've had the pleasure of collaborating with you on projects. But for those that do not know your story, why don't you share that with the group and get them up to speed on who Emmanuel Daniel is?
Perfect. Thank you. No, and it's an absolute privilege and pleasure to be on this episode. And it's great to see you, Kyle, Andy, and the rest of the IB team. I love working with you guys. I've enjoyed all our discussions, all our conversations, and all our chats. So, I'm hoping this is going to be another fun episode filled with jokes, laughter, and designs. But we'll see. It's great to meet everyone. My name is Emmanuel Daniel. I work at Microsoft. I used to be part of their global workplace services or the real estate organization. With Microsoft, I've held a wide variety of roles. Me as a person, I am from Singapore. Singapore is home for me. Singapore is where my tryst, acquaintance, and journey with smart buildings started. It started off as a program as to, hey, how do we get buildings and facilities management in these buildings to be attractive so the next generation of workers that come out, college grads that come out, will say, hey, I want to be a building manager. I want to go and manage these buildings because buildings is where we spend most of our time. That then evolved where I then started saying, hey, buildings is not just about efficiency and sustainability and better management. It has to be about experiences because we spend all of our time inside a building. How do you make these buildings delightful where the spaces that you're in starts to work for you and adapts to your needs? And that's what I said, the importance of experience or experiential buildings, where when you walk in, the building is able to adapt itself to your needs, and you don't have to worry about all the basic foundational elements that are there. So with that, I kicked off the whole smart building design practice, where I said, how do you design a building to be smart? What is a smart building and why does it need to be smart? How do you interact with the different types of people that go through the building? What are the types of data you would need to collect? How is that data going to interact with the numerous systems that go into a building? Because a lot of people don't know how complex buildings are outside of the brick and mortar facade or timber facades that you would have. The amount of tech that goes into a building, the amount of data a buildings collect. I tell people all the time, buildings have been collecting data for decades. It's just that, we're all hearing about it now, but buildings have been doing this for a very, very long time, pulling all that in and using that. So ultimately, the biggest question I get is beauty. Is beauty of a building aesthetics only, or is beauty of the building the experience inside? And I said it's both. You need to have aesthetics, but at the same time, you can wear really pointy, beautiful boots, but if those boots leave a shoe bite, it's going to be a strain for you to put them on the next time. And that's what a building is. It has to be as beautiful as it can be, but if the space inside the building is not as comfortable as you want it to be, no matter how beautiful that building is, you're not going to go back inside that building. Merging those two and creating the experience for the occupant through data and technology is what I do. I worked on our East Campus modernization program up at Microsoft, where we built our East Campus and how we defined it to be a state-of-the-art, connected, digitized building. And today, I'm part of our data center organization, but I'm helping driving digitization across EPC. But my love and passion for spaces, experiences, and making a physical space adapt to the people that are inside it is still as strong as it ever was.
Appreciate that, Emmanuel. And the convergence of the aesthetics and then the digital amenities is what I like to call them on the technology side. What does that digital experience look like for an employee? Now, Andy, you and I, we've gone through tour after tour after tour of buildings throughout our careers, and the things that we often get shown, Emmanuel, is like, oh, look at this amazing marble foyer that we have, and look at this really cool rooftop terrace that has all this green space, and we get shown all the pretty things. And a question that I have for you is, when you think about today's employee that's in these buildings, whether you look at the imported, marble, or you look at the technology that goes into these buildings, like, what do employees really care about? What amenities are really going to attract employees and get them to want to come into the office? What matters?
If you have a silver bullet there, we'd love to hear it.
To be clear, I love the flashy marble and the granite and the ambience of a beautiful lobby. But the building is not just the lobby. The building is not just the reception. It's about what happens after you cross those gantries, checkpoints, access doors. What are you going to do inside the building? The goal for us is you'll have something that you'll keep coming back to. And what is that thing that's going to keep bringing you back? It's definitely not going to be the shiny granite or the marble that's there in the lobby, but it's going to be how comfortable you are in that space. Human comfort goes across all levels. And that's why we said aesthetics are important. They're absolutely important. That's why we pride ourselves on good design, good layout, good physical space structures. But at the same time, for you, what is comfort for you? Are you looking, what kind of sound levels? impact your productivity? What kind of light levels boost your morale and your mood? What kind of air quality levels do you need so that you're not affected by what's going on in the environment around you? What kind of physical spaces should come together so you have the most conducive environment for the type of work that you're doing? Are you doing silent work? Are you doing group work? Are you doing learning? Are you doing a hot heated brainstorming discussion? Along the way, how are you going to keep yourself fed and energized? How is food going to be interwoven into your journey? How do you get access to that food? What kind of food options do you have so you can still stay healthy and strong? Bringing all this together, if you have to go and find someone who you have never seen before, accidentally colliding into someone where you have such a happy moment at the office, and man, I need to come to this space more because I see so many people that I love, so many people that I can learn from. Now, the question is not holding you there for a long period of time. The challenge is making you want to go there so you can have an experience, you can be delighted, happy, energized, and you come back. Driving that in any kind of a space is what we try to achieve. And that varies by type of space, that varies by geographic location, that varies by the demographics. All these elements start to come in. So that's why we say every building is unique, both physically and also based on the experience that that building is going to offer. I love to take my kids to amusement parks. We love going to Disneyland, even though it is tiring, right? You go to Florida in summer, you go to Disney World. With all that is going on, even though you're tired, you are going from ride to ride. The happiness that the kids get is, wow, this is fantastic. I meet all the characters that I want to meet. I have the thrills that I want to get. I get all the food that I want. Is the experience that comes in, and they would love to come back. So is an office. It should be an experience where employees love it so much that they don't have to be lured in. They'll be like, wow, I'm going to the office. I'm going to enjoy myself, get my work done, and come back. That is the silver bullet that we try to aim to design for.
So, Emmanuel, a lot of times when we're working with clients, we're trying to juggle a ton of viewpoints, especially always like there's always whatever that latest topic is, in the news that day, or elephant in the room right now is financial turbulence and, the cost of capital and how much are we going to fit out this space for, and where can we value engineer some of the technology costs that just keep going up? How do we still make sure this is flexible and we're going to get people here 80% of the time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. At the same time, our operations folks, our real estate teams need a ton more data. They've got ESG requirements. We're trying to hit corporate net zero by 2027 and a half.
Yep.
And maybe we have regulatory requirements we're trying to meet as well. We've got to make sure we're careful with personally identifiable information and not being seen as big brother. And there's so many of these different viewpoints that we juggle all the time. And, consultants can do weighted matrices and we can try and weight priorities. In your experience, how do you juggle all of these viewpoints? Because there's just a ton there.
It's a great question, Andy. And I think sometimes the filtering through the noise is going to be critical. The core systems in a building don't change, right? Your core elements of a building, your energy management systems, your automation systems, your monitoring systems, your metering, your lighting systems, your parking systems. Irrespective of all that you have to do, your core foundational systems stay the same. What we don't do a good job of is taking the data from these foundational systems and using that data to drive better engagement of the users that are using them every day. Lighting, for example, lighting contributes a huge deal to how sustainable buildings are. But why don't we look at fine-tuning the lighting system so that we can, based on the wavelength of light, based on the intensity of light, and based on where the light is going to be shed, to drive engagement and productivity of the users that are going to occupy those spaces, even combining that with natural light. So these are things that you don't have to put in addition to the building. These are things that are already there. With this period where the whole focus is on financial austerity and trying to make our buildings more efficient and not allowing us to overspend, the question I would put is, use what you have. Use data from the systems, bring that data in, and use that data to be able to drive insights that are going to benefit your workers. Because the challenge is, how do you motivate people to come together and collaborate in an environment that is going to meet their needs? Now, the other element tied to it is about the point that you raised is around collecting data and the whole concept of privacy and all these elements coming in, which which is, yes, they are absolutely critical and they're absolutely important. But the question is, a lot of the experiences that we drive can be done without collecting and storing PII data, right? It is like, I choose to park my parking lot where I have access to an open space because I love to see the natural light, or I love to be near a stairwell, right? Or I love to park my parking lot all the way at the back because I love my car so much, I don't want anyone to nick it, scratch it, or even look at it, right? So these are preferences that you can start to weave in. But if I'm going to give the power of choice to the user of that space and to say, hey, look, these are the options that you want, this is what is available, pick and choose what you would like, right? They can choose to share how much they want to share or how much they don't want to share. I think the key is sometimes we forget empowering the user, because ultimately they are king of the space that they're going to use, to make the choice of what to share and what not to share, and giving them the confidence that it's going to be used only for themselves is what we should aim for. In many cases, Andy, you are forced to give up all of your data to consume a basic service. And it should never be a force. It should be, hey, I'm going to give you the experience that you would get. I don't need to know anything about you. Go and take what you like. But if you would like it to be curated to your specific needs, for example, I would love to have a hot cup of Brazilian latte when I walk into the office, and Brazilian latte is only available at the Brazilian coffee shop that is 2 blocks from where I am. So, hey, why don't I plan that as part of my lunch? But if I say, hey, I would like hot coffee, I can get hot coffee from anywhere. So the customization where I would like to give up some piece of data where I can benefit from, that choice should be given. If that choice is not given, no matter what it is, people will not use that service.
Yeah. Just anecdotally there, and Kyle, I think I probably cut you off there, but anecdotally there, we've seen quite a few clients invest significant sums of money in workplace applications, that are tied to amenities. And after they first turn it on, they get good engagement, and that engagement continuously starts to tail off to the point where, there's consideration of, why are we even spending this? Like for like the 3 people that used it on Wednesday, like, this is expensive. How do you justify that? So you have to keep some value there. And to your point, if you are allowed to opt into extra value, you might get more uptake as opposed to being forced to use it for something. Or in your experience, is there anything that you think, keeps people coming back? I mean, you can say value, but is there anything in particular there that's a bit of a home run, you think, in some of these workplace experiences that you've created?
Well, he said, Andy, that he gets, I imagine you get Donald Duck to come and actually come into the office, right? Replicate that Disney experience. So I've tried doing that before, but I run into licensing issues.
The dad jokes come in already, right? Disneyland next. Yes.
I wish I could, but I have one coming up. I'm going to think of one. I have one fun coming up. But the killer experience are basics. You have to focus on the basics. It's not going to be about how clean the quality of air in building X is in comparison to building Y, or why my marble flooring is from Italy and yours is not, or why my granite is shinier than yours. It's great. It's great for the look, but that's not going to keep them coming back. The basics, how easy is it for me to get into the office, park my car, and go up to that meeting room? Basics.
Frictionless entry. Yeah.
Frictionless entry. It's not about the app. We have this a lot where we say that, is the app the killer for everything? And my phone has got hundreds of apps, and I'm sure everybody else's phone has hundreds of apps. My kids' phones have hundreds of apps. So you cannot go into another battle to say, hey, is this the number 1 app on the phone? Really, we have other priorities. The question has to be, how is that service going to be consumed? So ease of service consumption. Should I have access points with kiosks, or should it be on an app? Should I have access points with big screens and layouts and signs, or should that be on an app? Doing these evaluations, a lot of the time, what I've noticed people get wrong is they believe the app is the central point of consuming all services. It is true for certain kinds of services, but for experiential services with physical space, having physical touch points, having audible cues, right? Having the ease to say, I don't have to take out my phone, look at it, scroll through it, take my attention away from what I'm doing to say, oh, look, here's the kiosk right there. Oh, this is what I want to do. Let me click, click, click. Or, what I want to do is right there on that screen. Making that service easy to consume. Ease of consumption is something that I think we all forget at times. We make it so overloaded with so many features. People are like, whoa, how do I even get to this? Where did I leave my car? You know what? Okay, I'll walk home. Forget my car. It's too difficult to find. We don't want to have that service overload. That's what you have to avoid. Simplicity, core services, ease of use is what should be prioritized on.
Yeah, I know. I've had so many conversations with companies that have looked at adopting, the app to be the end all be all of all things, and what we end up finding, and I've had this, experience, Andy. I'm sure you bumped into this time to time again, but you end up with all of this invested money into something like an app that's supposed to cure everything, but you end up finding out its user adoption is absolutely abysmal. Sub 30% on actual adoption. And I find that the number one use case for those apps is usually mobile access. And if you don't even have mobile access on the phone, kind of pointless, because that's one of the main things that's driving people to the utilization of that app. And how many of these apps actually have mobile access native to it? Virtually none of them. They're all dependent upon third party. And then you have the nightmare and spider web of integrations between all the hardware manufacturers, access control manufacturers. If you want to bring parking now, you have parking systems, base building. It's an absolute cluster to actually try to enable that one specific use case, which is the primary driver of the use of the application. All right. So, and then you also, and this goes back to my digital twin days, Emmanuel, is companies that'll go and invest in these apps, but they don't have the vertical stack integrated from the top down. They actually leverage the data that comes from the base building to actually make the utilization of the app viable. Right. So you end up with all of those things creating a cluster when you look at that. But I want to pivot to really a lot of the dynamics, the factors that are really impacting office design today. Now, I mentioned a few different things early on between the different events that have occurred as of late, and now we're dealing, mostly, I think, with companies trying to figure out the whole hybrid work from home. How do you create this flexible, experience for employees, and so that when they do come in, we have a space that's actually meant for them, give them a reason to come into that office. How have you seen, like, the designers that, someone like yourself or other stakeholders within Microsoft would collaborate with? How has design changed with this new kind of dynamic that's, impacting the office environment? How are the designers working with large corporates as well as developers to make those spaces for the modern time?
That's a great question, Kyle. And the reason it is important now is because buildings are siloed. You have all manufacturers that stick in their own lanes, right? They don't believe they should talk to each. It is changing, slow and steady progress, right? And in the same way, so was design. Architects would do their thing. They would design their building. Once the designs are done, they would toss it over to our build teams, where the GCs would then start picking it up, translating it. There are two big shifts that are coming in. Once the GCs start building it, they will do the fit outs, they'll do everything. And post that, all of a sudden we say, hey, we built this beautiful building. How do we drive occupancy and how do we drive experiences inside? And then we said, oh, well, hold on. We just finished our capital. What are we going to do now? Right? Let's just phase it. Next retrofit, we'll start adding it all in and we start driving it. Okay, the aesthetic should be great for bringing people in. That's how we used to do things, right? You build a beautiful building and it is success. Today, there are many beautiful buildings and there are many choices. You have to start differentiating yourself based on the services your building is going to offer, because the services that you would have is ultimately going to lead to higher monetization of the building value and higher additional revenue as an outcome of the services that people would like to choose to consume. To achieve this, there is a lot more collaboration today between architects, building architects, experienced designers, behavioral analysts, workplace strategists, workplace designers, where when they talk about physical layout, everybody comes together and they start analyzing, for this type of space, what would be the aspects of services you would like to provide? To provide those services, what is the amount of data on the types of data you would need to capture? And to capture that data, what type of infrastructure and equipment you need to have in your building, outside of your building, and the sensors and devices that go inside, so you don't have to drill holes after the building is built, or you don't have to damage your CLT ceilings by drilling holes in them and going through the heartburn of that. Bringing all these folks together, where the initial concept of the building is designed to be engaging, smart, and impactful, is what we are starting to see a shift about. So the silos are slowly breaking down. Why is this important? Because very soon we'll start seeing a trend where you would go to a specific kind of a building for a specific kind of a reason because of the services in that building or what you're looking for at that point in time. If you want coffee, you go to a coffee shop. If you want to have barbecue, you go to a barbecue joint. You don't go to a barbecue joint for coffee, though you could you could go there, you could grab a cup of coffee and you could probably have some barbecued ribs, but there is a time and place
Sounds like
for different
heartburn.
experiences. Time and place with different kind of experience. What we are trying to do is, what are you trying to achieve in that space? And I'll give you this example. And it's not just about technology, it's about engagement. You can use technology to be able to influence the environment of the room so that the lighting, sound, engagement, the AV equipment are responding to what you needed to respond. But the basic need of collaborators is a vanilla whiteboard where they all want to get together, touch, feel, draw, scribble, talk about it. So no amount of technology is going to take away that feeling that a basic whiteboard would give. But for me to get all the people on that whiteboard talking, discussing, brainstorming, and coming up with innovative ideas, I have to ensure the surrounding environmental features in that room are conducive to that kind of discussion. So that's where we start matching physical design, which is your wall, your whiteboard, with technology design, your sound levels, your light levels, your layout of the room, your configurations, your air quality, along with space design. How easy is it to find that space, and what is the shape of that space so that we can make it more inclusive of those who are in the room and those who are willing to dial in from outside of the room. So these elements have to come together, and we're seeing that change happening today.
Very good. Well, I think we're gonna pivot over into some polls. I want to see what the audience has to say about some of these things, and then I'm going to ask you what your thoughts on a few of these. So I'm going to go ahead and publish these. And while we're going to, and just so everyone that's in the audience knows, I do see the Q&A questions that are coming in. So after we do the polls, we're going to jump over to the Q&A. And if anyone, while we're doing this, they want to add to the Q&A section, go ahead and feel free to do that. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. So that is now out. So everyone should be able to see that. Got 3 questions I want everyone to answer. Now, I mean, you got some beautiful kiddos, and this would not be a complete episode of IB Thinking About if I don't ask you for a dad joke. Now, what's one you got for us?
So I love my kids. We have so much of fun, and there is this joke that they told me, or I heard from somebody. We are a big fan of DC and Marvel at home. We love all the characters. Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Batman, Superman, everybody is loved universally at home. And one day my kids came and said, Dad, what happens when Batman and Robin get hit by a car?
What?
I was scratching my head thinking, oh my God, is this a serious question? How am I going to answer this? What type of question is this? And they said, Dad, you get Bitman and Ribbon. I was like, oh my God. it was that. They said, Dad. I said, okay, cool, I get it. But that's probably one that had me laughing for a very long time. Bitman and Ribbon. I was like, oh, I couldn't have thought about that one.
No, Emmanuel, I've got a cheesy one for you. You ready?
Uh-huh.
What did the office worker like about working in the dark? It gave her a delightful workplace experience. See what I did there?
Oh God, yeah.
Delightful.
We do a little bit of looking around for some of these jokes beforehand, Emmanuel, and sometimes I think I sit at my desk maybe a little too long looking at some of them. The one that had me just like, I was giggling to myself. I got to use it. I don't mind coming to work. It's the 8-hour wait to go home I can't stand. Some of them you just got to do it. Gotta do
it. All right. Everyone that's in the audience, we got last call on the questions. I'm about to wrap it up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead.
So that first question, just so everyone in our audience is aware, Kyle and I are putting some bets on what average occupancy will be like at the end of the year, because it's basically like buying a lottery ticket right now to try and see where things are going to go in a lot of the office sector. So thanks for helping us on this bet. We're going to see who wins, you guys on average or Kyle or I.
So, Emmanuel, if you had your crystal ball, first of all, Andy, do you see is everything sharing properly?
Yep.
Everyone can see the results. So, Emmanuel, if you had your crystal ball, Q1, 2024, what are occupancy rates in the major metros going to look like?
I'd probably say it's going to hit around the 40 to 50% mark, eventually getting up into 60, but 40 to 50 is what I put, because, the rates are growing. They are very positive signs. They are growing gradually. The importance of work and coming together has been highlighted, but, I'd probably put it at around 50%. Yeah. And I see the polls are at 60, which I think, it's a good representation.
I'm going to poke. Look, I see so much stuff about this and it makes me sad to see, but what do you think the occupancy rates in offices are going to be in downtown San Francisco in January 1?
You might shift the market with his answer here, though. We got to be careful.
I mean, it's not going to the office, Kyle. It's the 8-hour way to get back home. But that's difficult because, like I said, geographically, there are a lot of other factors that are going to influence that. It's going to be the drive, the location, how do I get in, and also where the office is and where the workers to that office live, work, and play. If they live close by, in terms of how certain offices are, I would say the occupancy would shoot above 50 easily. And on certain days, today they already do, right? It's not that, it's not for 5 days of the week. So for certain days of the week, offices have a lot more occupancy. But I would probably say, it will eventually hit up into the 50% mark as we try to move forward, because everybody will want to come and have to have that human connection as they move ahead.
Yeah, I've lost all human connection. I've worked from home for over 17 years. So
our audience is pretty skewed heavily to remote as well, with the responses between hybrid and home office.
Yeah, check that out.
Yep.
We got one that's living the dream, though, working from the beach. That's what I'm talking about. Again, I would have 500 gallons of sunblock on and a
big sombrero
on.
Yeah.
If I was working on the beach, I'd get too crispy. That's interesting to see. I think we probably got a lot of remote salespeople that are joining us today too. All right. What is the most important amenity in an office? What are your thoughts on that one?
What is the most important amenities in the office?
What would you care about the most?
For me, it'd be the ease of parking, the ease of getting into the building, the ease of finding food, and the ease of getting out without being stuck in a traffic jam when I'm going back home. So access and entry, how smooth access and entry can be in the easiest and smoothest possible way is what is going to motivate me to keep going back. If I have to spin around to find a space to park and not find places to eat, it's going to be difficult, getting back to that location.
Yeah, that aligns pretty well, Kyle, with what we see in our clients. That usually frictionless entry is the term everybody kind of sticks to, but how detailed you make that is very customer specific, right? Like, I don't even want to pull the phone out of my pocket to get into this space. And I do not care if it's a base building landlord owned system or it's my office on the 16th floor. I want it to be seamless, but the security guys have to be happy with how this works. So you guys just tell me how this works with what system has to talk to what, but I want to walk right into my office and not care that I forgot my card at home. Why am I still using a card? I have this phone attached to me surgically.
It's 2023, right?
Yeah.
There was an interesting report that came out from Gensler that was really speaking to a lot of the demographics and how that impacts what a office environment means. And one of the metrics that I saw in that report that I thought was pretty interesting, Emmanuel, was around the differences between younger generations versus like the baby boomer generation. Now, I'm considered a millennial. Are you considered millennial too, Andy?
A little older.
You're a little bit older.
A little older.
Yeah, you look.
Don't ask a gentleman his age on a call.
But the interesting thing is, like, all the three youngest demographics all of them, their idea of a perfect office environment was a coffee, like a coffee bar, right? Like a Starbucks type environment, which is like what, WeWork and all of that stuff tried to do with their environments. And then when you looked at the baby boomer generation, they still wanted the corporate, corporate environment. They wanted it very professional. And I just found that very interesting. Now, from your perspective, Emmanuel, are you seeing more and more of the design going towards that coffee barista to really cater towards the younger professionals that are entering the workforce? Is that where everything is?
So I would say it's a little bit of a mix, Kyle. The reason for that is different spaces have different needs at different points in time in the 8-hour life cycle, or in the office life cycle. We do see spaces becoming more collaborative. So, the canned office, 4 walls and a window kind of situation is not the norm. Because the reason for that is we're driving a lot more collaboration, a lot more openness, a lot more engagement, so people can see what's going on. But at the same time, you also need specific spaces that will have that setup where you can have private conversations or confidential discussions or confidential meetups on sensitive topics. So moving away from a vanilla office for everyone to team spaces or neighborhood spaces where everybody can come work together, collaborate together, being respectful of everybody else so that you don't have noise pollution, you don't have unnecessary traffic going into their areas, and having options of mixing it up with focus rooms where, hey, I need to focus for a certain point of time, so I would like to go back to the construct of having a dedicated room and a space for a few hours a day, right? So I can get together with my team and huddle. So that hybrid setup of space design is starting to come in, and that's something that is really critical, because space is for everyone, and I think that's what is also fundamental to design. Inclusivity is extremely important. I can't exclude a generation because, I don't think that's what it should be. And I cannot include only a generation. So from that perspective, designing spaces that caters for the millennials, the baby boomers, and, for the future generations to come in, where the space adapts to their needs, is what we're headed into. Today, we're focusing on collaboration with the option to give people all kinds of spaces that they would need. And I think that's the way it should be, creating a diverse and inclusive spatial environment that adapts to the needs of every type of demographic in that space.
This brings me into, I'm going to jump into the QA, everybody, because there's a question here that kind of piggybacks onto that. So one of the questions that we got, Emmanuel, was, and we did touch on this a little bit as far as some of the external parties that collaborate on the design of a space, but what are the critical points of view that need to be captured first when planning for a delightful workplace? So I think perhaps that question is leaning towards, what are the internal stakeholders that need to be collaborating at the table as far as points of view on the design side?
Yeah, I think the biggest perspective everybody starts to miss when they start doing a space renovation or a building design or bringing it up is, who are the occupants of that building? Okay, the owners do occupy the building, but generally the owners have got a huge demographic base that will start to come into it, and that's why creating a representative view of the type of occupants that the building is going to have and the needs that they're going to prioritize for their life is going to be absolutely important. And this is important because if you look at a fresh college graduate, if you look at a seasoned office employee who's been there for 15, 20 years, if you look at a new family person, they just had kids, they just started their families, look at new mothers, all their needs are different, but they all come to the office with the goal of doing great work and doing what they love. But they all have different physical, spatial needs that we have to cater for, and that building has to cater for that for over multiple generations. Usually that view is always ignored. That view is not there, that view is not analyzed. Bringing that view in, using that as foundational to the experience design as to what is needed, how is it going to be consumed, designing your core infrastructure from that view, along with the data that needs to be captured, should be part of a day zero design. Usually they start doing that at day 4, day 5, when the building is just about to open. But day zero, when we are starting to create the concept view of the project, you need to bring those elements in, and that will ensure you have a highly representative building and the services in that building catering for all demographics and people that are going to use it.
Andy, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, so that's, I guess that's human resources. That might be your space designer. You might be doing surveys. You might be trying to get something from, feedback, or looking at where your work order complaints were before previously to try and address, like, just multiple disparate sources, but start far earlier, right?
One point, Andy, that I'll add that's getting a lot of popularity is also bringing in human behavioral specialists, because if the earthquake spoke, Kyle, and you were talking about millennials versus baby boomers, behaviors are very different.
Oh yeah.
How do you incorporate those behaviors into your space design? Bringing those folks in has also started to gain a lot of popularity nowadays, because ultimately, the goal that we all care about universally is occupancy of that building. What do I need to do to drive occupancy so people love to come and use the space that I'm designing? And to do that, I need to bring these people in.
There's another really good question. So it's one thing to look at design and experience for an owner-occupied building, like a large corporate headquarters. It's another thing when you look at a multi-tenanted asset where the developer and landlord and investor is looking at enabling advanced experiences for their tenants. But that you have a whole nother layer of challenges, right? Because you have your own TI, outfits on a space by space basis. They may be bringing their own technologies into that environment. And so how does a building owner successfully deliver these experiences to their tenants versus a single owner occupied type of environment?
No, that's a great question, and we get that all the time. And in my career with the different kinds of roles that I've had, I've been an owner occupier. I've also been a leaser, and I'd also work with customers that go and lease buildings, right? And they have certain services that go inside. It's a really important question, because that is going to define how you're going to create architectures that are going to allow for customization depending upon the tenant that's going to use it, and also going to define what are your base services that you will provide for that building. The reason this is important is because when we started talking to a lot of developers, the base services that you give are going to be deciding criteria as to why a leaser would like to lease from you versus somebody else. So using those services as higher monetary value, making it more attractive for you to be potentially leased out than your competitors, and to drive higher footfall to your building are going to be critical. With that in mind, identifying what are owner provided services. If you're just going to build a shell, no tenant will want to come into your building. They're like, I have to do everything in the building. What's the point? Although you have a shell, I can build my own. Building a shell, adding services to that shell that the owner should be able to provide, such as parking, navigation, retail, footfall and navigation to retail, combining in elements of retail spaces and food and dining concepts, lighting, security, access, right? What are those core foundational elements that you can provide that is able to integrate with tenant systems? Because when you talk about parking is a big deal everywhere. You will have tenants that says, hey, I want a certain portion of the parking to be dedicated to me. And in that, I would like to have VIP lots when I have customer visits coming in. How do you dynamically manage those requests? Access. Hey, I've got access for all these employees coming in, but there are certain amenities on our floor that we would like to keep open because we would like to run a joint co-innovation lab. Where people can freely come and access, but we wanted to track it. So having that flexibility where your core services are able to be adaptable to your needs of the tenants, and then also allowing for tenant systems to piggyback and consuming your network infrastructure. That could be your power systems, that could be your lighting systems, that could be your Wi-Fi. How do you share what you have? So if a tenant has it, they can consume it and securely demarcate the zones that they would operate in. These are not thoughts that you would have a few years ago, right? Because they would say, hey, this is a shell, that's it. Nowadays, tenants have become a lot more demanding, and they should, because you have so much of high quality space out there. They can pick and choose what they want. So if you have to boost the value of your office space, if you have to increase your rental revenues, identifying what your core services are, how your core services will interoperate with tenant provided systems that they would like to use, is what's going to lure those people to come into your spaces.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Emmanuel. A lot of times we get asked to help future-proof these systems so that there is flexibility, and usually that request means without spending more money on these systems, of course. But having, the technical details, the open protocols availability of secure networking and ways that, you as an occupier, your IT department can validate that there's secure data flow between building systems or read-only access, maybe that there's some agreement on the security side of things, and giving those requirements to the folks looking for space to request of landlords, or the owner, developer, landlord being able to be proactive and say, before you even ask, we're ready with the flexibility of this space. You can take it or you can leave it. We've made this ready for you. Super important. And to get into what that really means, instead of just listing out the protocols, right? Like, we can give you sustainability data. We know you have, corporate requirements to report. We got you. We got meters in the space already. We'll give you access to a portal. Your compliance folks can download the information on a daily, weekly basis, whatever they'd like. Here you go. It's ready. Or do you want frictionless entry? We've got a system set up on the parking lot system, on the elevators, and right up to each lobby. We can integrate with you right into your space if you'd like. If you don't, no problem. We got you right till you're in your space. Making it tangible like that on the readiness side of things is where we see a lot of our clients asking for help. And then in marketing it and proving to those, occupiers like yourself in the roles you've been in, that even proactively that they're ready before you ask for it.
Well, now I would say with the way the office market is right now, especially when you look at areas like New York and LA, just the office competition is at an all-time high. You've got large occupiers that are allowing leases to expire. They're consolidating their footprint, and they're going to what's going to be the next, amenitized space that I can provide for my employees for the foreseeable future. So you have these buildings that are now, sub A that are trying to compete with the A and the A plus, and you've got your buildings that are haves or have nots. And so, leasing agents and brokerages are looking at, okay, well, how do we position these assets? How do we market these assets to attract the next Microsoft or Apple or Amazon or whomever to come into their space? Are you seeing, and you don't have to speak specifically to Microsoft, Emmanuel, but just large occupiers in general, are there certain things like certifications, anything specific that you're looking for to say, okay, if we're going to occupy this building, it needs to do X, Y, and Z?
Mm-hmm. So look, I think in terms of certifications, they are important, they're critical, but the challenge is everybody gets certifications, so I don't think that's a big deal. But basically, you need to have your sustainability certifications done. You need to have your efficiency certifications done, your workplace health certifications done, your air quality certifications done. All that goes without saying. And in some geos, it is probably more important than in other geos, looking at environmental factors that affect those places. But what they will also look at is, which has become a huge topic, is sustainability. And Andy, you spoke about it at the very start, where you started talking about ESG as a requirement. Even though I am part of a building that I am leasing, it is still going to impact my corporate ESG metrics that I would like to do. So how am I going to work with the landlord to ensure the building is as sustainable as it could be? Access to those metrics from my building automation systems, access to those metrics from my energy management systems, where I can share that with my tenant and say, hey, based on what you do in your workspaces, you can help improve how efficient and how sustainable this building is. Being able to collaborate that way is something that we all care about, because that's what we want to do. How do we save and make our buildings more efficient? The next aspect of it is also talking about water. What are we doing to harvest water? What are we doing to save water, to make usage more efficient? And it is not solely on the tenant. It is also on the landlord who manages that supply, and to give visibility to the tenant, say, hey, if you can change certain practices this way, this is how more efficient you can be. So the breaking down of the silos of what a landlord and what a tenant is, and opening up avenues to be able to collaborate on building performance parameters, where the landlord can open it up and say, based on these parameters, these are the benefits you can achieve. And the tenant can say, yeah, this is what I want, but I want to show everybody how committed I am to my sustainability goals. And by doing so, all the landlords I lease from are helping me by collaborating with me to get to those metrics. That collaboration was never there a few years ago, but now those are differentiations that owners would like to see when they lease from potential landlords. Say, hey, are you going to work with me so that my goals can be met? And can I help teach you, guide you, work with you so that I can improve how you are capturing these data and the initiatives that you're doing. So that, because before, landlord was a landlord, tenant was a tenant. If something breaks, you call the landlord. If not, you don't see each other. But now the co-collaboration model, I own the space, you use the space, how can we work together to make the space more efficient, is what is starting to happen.
Yeah, very good. All right, everyone, I think we're right here at the end of our time. I'm going to share one thing, Emmanuel, as we're parting ways with our guests today. Any final thoughts, any final words you want to share with everyone?
The one thing I would share is focus on how you can delight the users of the space and design around that, rather than designing the space and then force-putting people into that space. If you start by looking at the occupants and the people that are going to use that space, you would get much better designs, and you would ensure that people would love to come back to your space all the time, every time. That's what the goal should be.
Well, Emmanuel, we certainly appreciate you and the time you've spent with us today. Thank you for having fun with us. Thank you for sharing all of your amazing insights and your experiences with us. For those of you in the audience who have never had the pleasure of meeting Emmanuel, I encourage you to reach out on him to LinkedIn. Emmanuel, you're going to be joining us at Realcomm, right? Yep. So yeah, I mean, if you don't know him, I or Andy we are happy to introduce you to him if you're going to be at Realcomm. He's an amazing person to know. Again, reach out to him on LinkedIn. For those of you who are going to be at Realcomm, IB will be there. We're going to be at booth 109. We encourage you to come and talk to us. Love to meet you. Love to learn what kind of projects you're working on. And then for next month, we've got a new episode number 5 of IB Thinking About, where Andy and I, we spend so much time talking about all the buzzwords, all the things. We're going to dedicate an entire episode to that, right, Andy? I think I have an amazing idea, just an innovative, bleeding edge ecosystem of platforms that I'm going to propose to you on the next episode.
That's powered by AI and machine learning in the metaverse.
Oh, absolutely. Blockchain, tokenization, it's all good. It's all part, that's all in the back end though. It's all in the back end. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm gonna get there. Right.
So for our audience, if there's a particular buzzword you want to get in there, leave us some comments. We're gonna have some fun with this. Should be really entertaining, because I know every one of us hears these all day in our interactions with industry. So we're gonna have a bit of fun next week. See if we get in trouble with it.
So that episode is on June 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Not next week. End of June.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're going to be going to Realcomm, reach out to us. We'd love to schedule some time with you. Take care, Emmanuel.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.